And welcome inside Delmar Live, powered by 302 Sports. We're here for week number 3 of the Pigskin picks. And Marty Slim, it's going to be kind of tight in there. Glenn Frazier going 6-2 last week. Trey and I going 7-1. Much better than 2 weeks ago, where we all got hammered. Big upset week. This week, I like to call Identity Week, because we're going to find out a lot about a lot of teams that we don't quite know yet. We'll go through each one as they happen.
Couldn't agree 100%. I was going to say the exact same thing. This is the week most of these teams we don't know about still.
Yeah, we're about to find out. We'll talk about some of those games. So let's start off with a double-A game. And it's going to be Howard headed to Woodbridge. Howard 0-2 against the 2-0 Blue Raiders. Trey, who do you have in this Class 2A cross-district matchup?
So Howard struggled on offense this year. They've only put up 6 points in 2 games. Granted, those 2 games were against number 1 Caravel and then Class 3A Hodgson. And they're heading to Woodbridge, who just put up 60, who they hung 60 on last year. But Woodbridge has been lighting up the scoreboard as well this year. They haven't really been tested. Have wins over Seaford and Glasgow. They're both single A teams. So they're definitely going to get tested by Howard this week. I think I could see a high scoring game here, but I'm going to go with Woodbridge at home.
Marty, here it is. 2 teams we talked about. Here's the first one up. Who are these 2 teams?
Muted. Oh, still muted.
Marty, you're muted.
There we go.
There we go. All right, let me try this again. Sorry about that, guys. We got an interesting game here with Howard. They scored the first points of the season back on August 29th. Amir Madry ran 64 yards for a touchdown. They haven't scored a point since. So by the time this game kicks off, we're talking about 3 weeks since they've scored a point. Now, granted, they have played some good teams, but they've played a 3A team, which they lost to last year, although they played them much tougher. And, of course, they played to Caravel, who's just the juggernaut of 2A. So I'm not sure we know exactly who Howard is or where they are right now. And for Woodbridge, you look at it, again, Benny, going back to your identity thing, we don't really know who they are either. Seaford and Glasgow, so they haven't been tested at all. The difference for me is 2 things. One, this is at Woodbridge, which is just an incredible place on a Friday night. And 2 is how Woodbridge has scored. They've scored running the ball, receiving the ball, kickoff return, interception return, 2 fumble returns. They're getting everything done. Jakari Banks is great. Cameron Johnson's done a good job. Logan Moran, for me, has been a surprise. He's run the offense beautifully. 5 of 8, 69 yards, a couple touchdowns. I think Woodbridge right now is just too much for a Howard team that still hasn't figured out who they are yet.
Yeah, like I call the suburbs of Greenwood is where they'll be playing on Friday night. Woodbridge has lost just 2 games. It just lost 2 games last year, and Howard was one of them. And you better believe Marvin Dooley is going to remind his Blue Raiders about the 60-22 shellacking they got last year. This will be a hard-hitting, fun-to-watch game. But even though Woodbridge has been putting points on the board, it will be their defense that gets them the win. Woodbridge avenges last year's loss. In a much closer game, I'm taking Woodbridge. Another game, I think we're getting close to knowing who these 2 teams are, but we're going to find out more about them Friday night. Red Lion, number 3 in AA, takes on number 7 in AAA, St. Mark's at St. Mark's. Trey, who you got?
Yeah, St. Mark's has lost 5 straight home games, and Red Lion is 2-0 on the road this year. Red Lion came on late against Henlopen in their season opener, and then last week mounted a second-half comeback to beat Lake Forest. St. Mark's defense is going to keep this a low-scoring game. I like Red Lion here. They've been they're not afraid to play on the road, and they've shown they can hung with bigger teams. I like Red Lion.
All right, here's one your neck of the woods. Who you got?
This is a strange one. I was going to echo what Trey said. I don't get what's going on with St. Mark's at home all of a sudden. They can't seem to win a game at home. Now, the last 2 years, they've played Red Lion 3 times, and they've outscored them 122-18. However, that line that St. Mark's had the last couple of years is gone. There is a completely different line in place there, and they're struggling, frankly. The win against St. George was great. They had to have that. But Archmere put over 400 yards up on them, 200 on the ground, 200 through the air. I think if St. Mark's can keep this close, Matteo Bracalente could play a huge role, an amazing kicker for St. Mark's. I just feel like with Barber and Mackay Corbin on the ground, I feel like Evan Budinger is due for a breakout game. I'm with Trey here. I like Red Lion on the road. I think the R of playing at the Graveyard is gone right now until St. Mark's reestablishes it. I think Red Lion goes in there with a lot of confidence and gets the win.
Red Lion, they proved to me last week that they can handle adversity. They played Cape, Henlopen tough, routed Glasgow, and got a big 2A road win against Lake Forest last week. But this week they had to Pike Creek to face the 3A St. Mark's. St. Mark's got a narrow win over St. George's to open the season and fell late to Archman last week. I feel the Spartans break the home losing streak. I'm going to call it an upset, even though they're a AAA team, but I like St. Mark's to win on Friday night. Let's move to, again, here, right along our theme. Wilmington Friends at 1-1 versus Delmar at 2-1. Down in Delmar. Trey, who you got?
Yeah, the Quakers, they had one of the toughest places to play in Delmar, but they have played there before, and I'm sure Coach Tattersall will have them prepared for a rocking stadium. Friends is always well-disciplined and a tough four opponents. In Delmar, they bring a lot of experience back this season, and as always, they're going to have the dive and the double dive, and Friends are going to have to find a way to stop it. Delmar's defense may have the edge in this game here as well. I think it's we've watched this game many years now. They play each other tough. I like Delmar at home with their experience. That they run that system really well, and again, the defense I think is going to get this done for Delmar. Longtime
head coach Marty is Dave Hearn and the dive and double dive out of Delmar.
Yeah, Dave does a great job down there. Again, two teams we don't really know much about. Dickinson, they've both destroyed. Friends has really, to me, the one of the biggest head-scratchingest losses so far. How they lose to Tatnall in the opening game, I have no idea. Not that Tatnall team's not good, but Friends should not be losing to Tatnall. The last few years, Friends has dominated this series, but you're down at Delmar. It's a very tough place to play. Friends feels more one-dimensional this season than they have in the past. In the game against Tatnall, Ryan Tattersall, other than him, 5 other players touched the ball, but no one touched it more than twice. It was the Ryan Tattersall show. They did spread it out a little more against Dickinson, but again, against Dickinson, it's not really a good read. I think Ryan Tattersall has a great game. I think that game against DMA really showed that Delmar is still struggling. They're trying to put it together. I'm going to go with Friends on the road here down at Delmar to get the big win.
Rarely do we find Delmar and Friends not in the rankings. But the team in the same year, I mean, really, it's early with plenty of season to go, but this AA matchup could potentially have state tournament implications, and we're only in week 3. Wildcats, a lot of key returners, big senior class. When I say big, as in numbers, as in size. When you go to Nuvar Stadium, there's no track there. The fans literally sit on the sidelines. It's so close. They line the concession stand edge. It's a tough place to get a win. I'm just going to go strictly home field advantage, and the Delmar Wildcats get this win. Let's move to, again, talking about our theme tonight. Trey, Lake Forest, who lost in overtime last week to Red Lion, who lost by 6 to Cape Henlopen in week 1. They're at Cape Henlopen.
Yeah, Lake Forest seemed to run out of steam in the second half last week. And Cape is really big up front, which could pose a problem for that Lake defense, which has several guys playing both ways. Jack Parson is an underrated quarterback. If the line keep him upright in this game, he could be a factor. The Vikings have talent all over the field. I like Cape's size. I like the home field for them here. And, they've proven they can play 4 quarters. Not that Lake Forest can't, but they kind of ran out of steam last week. So, like you talk about identity, I think right now that favors Cape Henlopen for me.
Marty, we've got Tingle versus Parson. I think Parson, as Trey said, a very underrated quarterback.
He is, and he's a guy who missed most of last season with an injury, as did running back Aiden Young. They're both back, and they both look great so far. Lake Forest, let's not beat around the bush. They should be 3-0. They totally blew that game against Red Lion at the end. They had 2 drop touchdown passes. They botched 2 extra points, including 1 in regulation at the end that would have won the game for them. Their defense has been strong when they've needed to be. The defense was kind of hamstrung by the offense last week. Cape Henlopen is loaded still. Jamison Tingle, I think, is going to be one of the best quarterbacks around. He's really impressive. Jaden Messick has done a nice job on the ground. This just feels like Lake Forest. This is one of those games. And by the way, Coach Frederick, please stop scheduling 3 2A games to start every season. It's almost like the opposite of. He looks at Smyrna coach Mike Judy's schedule and says, "Let's do the complete opposite of that. But it worked for them last year. They got to the state title game. So what do I know? But anyway, I like Cape in this one. They're home. I think Lake really, that was a confidence blow last week to lose that at the end to Red Lion. And I just think Cape Henlopen with Jamison Tingle there and Coach Frederick and the line play, it's just too much right now. Cape Henlopen takes it.
Lake Forest is number 7 in Double A, Cape and number 4 in Triple A. I'll tell you, Marty, we did the game last week, and that place was rocking at 20-20. And when that snap went awry, it went silent. I mean, it just the whole stadium went silent. So it was like I think you're right. It was a big downer, a shocker for them. We have common opponents in these two teams. Cape opened the season where they jumped out ahead of Red Lion, and then they held the Lions off for a 20-14 victory. Lake Forest jumped out as well, but Red Lion in overtime, 27-26. As Trey said, Lake Forest, and Jim Tack said this throughout the second half, Lake Forest looked like they were getting tired. They have a lot of guys going on both sides of the ball. So this is a game that comes down to who's the better second half team. This game I think it's going to be a good 3 quarters. It's going to be decided late, but I think the roster depth and the size of Cape Henlopen is the edge. Give me Cape Henlopen here to move to 3-0. So let's move to Smyrna and Appo. Smyrna just Jekyll and Hyde this year. Talk about identity. Trey, Smyrna at Appo. Smyrna number 6. Appo number 5.
Yeah, looking at these two teams, I can definitely see a ton of points getting scored Friday night. Historically, Smyrna's always put points on the board, and Appo these last few years have also been scoring in bunches. If I was a betting man, and there's no betting in high school football, but if I was a betting man, I'd definitely take the over on this game. I'm going to take Smyrna here.
Marty, what do you got here? It's not the Harvest Bowl, but it's close. It's another military.
It is. Team. This is interesting because when Smyrna lost to Downingtown West, of course, there was no surprise there. They're a great team. I did not expect the performance against Sally's, and I think what we learned there was more about Sally's than Smyrna. They're just a class above everyone else right now on both sides of the ball. Smyrna, I thought against DMA, it was the absolute drug that Drew Marks needed to get his confidence going because he and Phoenix Enriquez were unstoppable. The defense looked good. However, you look at Appo, that kid, Desai Drummond, his confidence in the post-game interviews with 302 and with Brad Myers, this kid just oozes confidence. He's got 8 touchdowns in 2 games. They've got the amazing 3 wide receivers, plus they add Jasir Rogers from Red Lion this year. He's starting to get into the thick of the thick of things. I just think something special is brewing on Bunker Hill Road this year. I feel like this is Appo's year. I'm going to take Appo at home.
Another identity game. We know the Jaguars can score, but so far that's been against Double A Odessa, who's 0-3, and winless Dover, who we knew nothing about. And I still don't think we know much about
either.
Dover. Smyrna, as usual, tested themselves with Downingtown, and then number 1 Slade before getting that first win against DMA. I actually thought that DMA game would be a little closer. This week we find out if either of these teams is a contender in AAA. I think the roles are reversed this year. Appo comes in with many weapons on offense and a strong defense. If this game was in Smyrna, I might go one way, but this game's in Appo. I'm taking the Jaguars and Appo to move to 3-0. Now we go to number 2, Sussex Central in AAA, and number 4, Delaware Military in AA. Trey, who you got? Sussex Central 2-0 and DMA 2-1.
Yeah, Central, they're coming off of a bye week after that huge win over Middletown. And I think that's going to keep them from having like a hangover, right? Having that big, after that big, huge win, it's going to, that week off allows them to, to refocus for the rest of their schedule. I think, they're not going to have a trap game or a downer here. DMA had a big win over Delmar, but they suffered a tough one last week to Smyrna, losing 36-6. I like AAA Sussex Central here coming into DMA with the week off.
Marty, Sussex Central is going to be right across the street from you, right down the street.
That's right. I can hear the public address announcer if I have my back door open. This could be a fun game. I think DMA has found a quarterback in Ethan Brantley. He's doing a nice job. Of course, Kale Denigris on the defensive line has just been phenomenal. Sussex Central, though, their offense with Bradley Chavez is just rolling along. 40 points a game, pretty much. Chavez is 4 touchdowns, no interceptions through the air. He's done a great job managing things. Then he throw in Malik Bell, Will Harmon, Jawan Sturgis. There's just way too many weapons there. DMA's defense may keep this close for a while. They just don't have the offense to keep up. This is a big Sussex Central win in the end.
Yeah, Sussex Central, that offense only replacing 2 starters from last year. So and then you had that massive backfield of theirs. I mean, sophomore all-state fullback for you. And Chavez has just walked in like he is a veteran. It's only his first year. But the Seahawks, they welcome their second AAA team in as many weeks to their schedule. After last week's loss to number 6 Smyrna, they face now number 2 Central. DMA is going to make some noise in AA before this season's all over with. But it's just not this week. I think the Golden Knights are just going to have too much, as we said, Marty. And like Trey said, no hangover. They got the week off. They got to get themselves back to business. And I like Sussex Central here in this game. Let's move to one of our 2 games of the week. It's Glenn Frazier and Pat Gariantes will have this game. It's number 6 Laurel at number 1 Caravel. Caravel is kind of like the Slazan of AA right now. Trey, who do you have in this game?
So Laurel's already played Class 3A Sussex Central and Caesarani, so they should be ready for Caravel size. But the Bucks, they have deep talent. And they're on a 15-game winning streak, and they haven't looked like they missed a beat from last year. Laurel's Tate Wall's like a man on a mission this year. He's been dominant in every game this season. But I think Caravel at home is going to be a little too much. I think Laurel keeps it close like they did with Central, but I think in the end it's going to be Caravel.
Marty, Tate Wall's talking about him, misses an entire year. The first time he touches the ball in 2 years, he takes it to the house, and he hasn't stopped taking it to the house. He's making house calls regularly now.
No, he hasn't. When I saw it, it was so funny because it just seemed like it flew under the radar when he scored all 37 points of that game against Brandywine. But he's been on fire, and I like Kobe Shockley. I still think he does a really nice job leading the offense down there. This is another one of those games where Laurel, I'm not sure we know exactly who they are yet. They did hang with Sussex Central, then they blow out Brandywine. The win against CR, I think, told us more about CR. I think I got a little juiced on CR after that shutout of William Penn opening night. Since then, both those teams have gone in opposite directions. Caravel is just absolutely loaded, though. Josh Roy, 2 games, 64 carries, 599 yards, and 7 touchdowns. It's averaging 10 yards a carry, basically. Way too much Caravel offense here. I agree with Trey. I think the Laurel defense keeps this close for quite a while, but too much Caravel offense. Caravel in the end.
Josh Roy halfway to 1,000 with 8 games to go. These 2 teams are very similar. They both managed to reload every year. After 2 Class A state titles, Laurel moves up to AA, and they compete. They make the state tournament. This year, they took on 2 AAA teams in Sussex Central. That went down to really the 4th quarter, and then they beat Caesar Rodney. Tate Walls is making up for that lost season. Caravel's just Caravel. They ran the table last year. They're on their way to another AA state championship. This year, they look like the team that can repeat. Again, like both of you said, I think this game's close for a while, but Caravel comes on the end and gets the win. I'm going Caravel here on Friday night. And then our downstate game of the week, I think this is going to be a fun one. Number 1, Indian River, and number 4, Polytech. I'll have the game with Jim Tack. Trey, who do you got?
Yeah, these 2 teams, they match up really well. You got 2 really good quarterbacks, and Dylan Grice for Indian River and Polytech's Isaac Balzarak. Balzarak likes to spread the ball around. He's connected with 7 different receivers. And Grice, he has a couple targets, but his real weapon is Darnell Stokes, who caught 5 passes last week in St. Elizabeth's. Both teams have a big and solid defense, and I'm looking for a big play to be the difference in this game. God, this one's tough. I think I'm gonna take the home field advantage here. I'm gonna take Polytech.
Marty, Indian River trying to get back to the days of glory, 79-80, 2011. I was out to their practice the other day, 65 plus kids. They're big. Yep. There's, if I had to describe Indian River right now, I'd say energy.
Yep.
Who you got in this game?
Indian River, I watched the entire game start to finish against St. Elizabeth's, and although the final score looked close, 46-28, it wasn't. St. E's got a couple garbage touchdowns at the end of that game. This was dominated by Indian River. Dylan Grice and Darnell Stokes are becoming one of the best 1-2 punches in the state as far as a quarterback and receiver combo. Javion Chandler and Devin Handy are getting it done on the ground. The defense has been phenomenal. When the starting defense was in against St. Elizabeth couldn't do anything. I look at Polytech and I see they beat J.M. Bennett. I got to be honest, I don't know anything about J.M. Bennett. And then I look at Charter, and it looks like Charter has lost a lot from last year. So Polytech falls into that identity thing. I'm not sure if we know who they are. The Ballstrack brothers are great. The quarterback and the wide receiver. The running game with Noah Walker and Kenneth Valson is strong. I just think right now, Indian River, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I kind of thought, thinking back to those old teams, it just feels like that energy right now. I feel like Indian River goes on the road and gets a big win at Polytech.
Back when Indian River wore the forest green and Notre Dame.
That's right.
Back in the heyday, back when I was playing. My football broadcast career started here at Polytech in 2014. Now, in the fourth year of football classification, I returned for the big Class A battle between two top 5 teams. Polytech they've been road warriors to start the season. A come from behind win down in Salisbury, and then avenging last year's loss in the playoffs to Wilmington Charter, soundly 24-7 win. Indian River, on the other hand, they've just been bullying their opponents. They have an average of 50 points in their wins over Ada Pond and St. Elizabeth. We will see tough defense here on both sides, but the Indians have a lot of arrows in their quiver and the ability to put points on the board. Indian River gets the win here. So, Marty, there's our games for this week. What team is your biggest mystery right now? We talk about identity.
Oh boy, I want to say it's Howard. I just feel like Dan Ritter always produces a good club, and right now, we just have no idea. Smyrna, I think you can throw out there too because of the opponents they've played. But Howard, just watching their games, there are times when they flash on offense and they look like they're going to produce something, and then all of a sudden they shoot themselves in the foot. And I know I'm kind of copping out here, but I'll throw one more into the mix, and that's Dave Collins' Hodgson team. I think they've been difficult to watch this year. Caravel, they were absolutely destroyed. It's just, I'd say those 3 teams are still have to show me something. I just want to add something real quick to your people that may, if you haven't listened to Benny and Jim call a game, it's fun as heck. They do a great job. Jim Tack is the Gus Johnson of Delaware. If you want to hear a guy get excited when there's a fumble or a touchdown, Jim Tack is that guy. You got to reach for the volume on the TV, but they do a phenomenal job for 302 Sports, and it's real fun to listen to. And I'm thinking this Indian River Poly game is right up your guys' alley. This is going to be a fun one.
Well, we went 3 seconds left. We went to overtime. I don't know, double overtime this week. I don't know.
There you go.
and I referred to Jim, and he agrees with me. He's the football nerd. He comes with a folder and a notebook, and he is like, he sits down, he starts telling me how this game's going to go, and he's right. He's a PIAA Hall of Fame coach. I think it was up in North Penn. So, Trey, what team makes you scratch your head?
I'm kind of piggybacking off Marty here. Smyrna, and the last 2 years they really test themselves early. So, here in Delaware, you don't really know what they have yet. I lost a tough one to Sally, so I think this is a big week for Smyrna to show us who they are. I mean, we know they've been in the past. Are they still that monster, or what are they? So I think Smyrna is the head scratcher for me.
I think for me it's going to be Cape and Henlopen. I'm going to go like you said, Marty. It's the schedule. They were the state finals last year. They held off Red Lion, blew out Del Castle. They have Lake Forest coming in, and then they go. I think they have St. Mark's after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be kind of hard to pick down the road. I think they have a lot of talent. Like I said, they have Tingle and Messick, and they have a huge line. I think what I'm waiting to see against them is their defense. How's their defense? And I think this is a true test for their defense this week because Lake Forest has a few weapons themselves. And it's Darius Miller time when that kid steps on the field. I don't know if you saw the catch last week.
Yes.
Where he mossed the defender.
Yes.
And jogged into the end zone. The kid is phenomenal. If he gets behind defenders, he is trouble. So Identity Week, everybody. Kick off at 7, and then hey, get back on Sunday. Guys, we're late. I hadn't been going back to my
computer
on Sunday for the Delaware High School football pod with Marty and John Busby. It's a great listen. You can watch it on YouTube. But that's a wrap for this week. Marty, see if you can. The door's cracked open. Not a lot. 6-2. You were our champ a couple years ago, and looking to regain it. So here we go, folks. We'll see you Friday night at kickoff.